So happy New Year, Aaron.
I have a big screen now. I have one of those big 49-inch monitors. So
Yeah.
you're like this big in front of me.
Whoa.
It's startling for the new year.
Well,
Yikes. It's good to see
my
you.
my little you thought that screen was just one kind of gift for you. It's provided another gift, I see. You're in the midst of a snowpocalypse
Hmm.
up in
Eh,
Michigan.
it's
No.
weak sauce. That's why you got to keep the beard and the warm clothes and
Right.
whatnot. I
I see
see we're both like repping Eddie Bauer today.
Oh yeah, I guess so.
I didn't plan that. I'm sorry
No, we did
for that.
not coordinate. As per usual, we did not coordinate outfits.
I
Well,
don't think we
before
coordinated anything. I'm still not sure what you're gonna do to me today.
Well, before we launch into our topic, which is around New Year's resolutions, today is a super, super important anniversary for some folks. And I don't want that to go without a note. And Pat, you look really concerned. You don't know where I'm going with this. So yesterday was the official retirement of BlackBerry
Oh,
services.
that's not where I thought you were going with this.
No, not at all. So today is the first BlackBerry free. All the last gasp BlackBerry devices started working today. How do you feel about that? Did you
That's okay.
ever have an emotional attachment to a BlackBerry device?
BlackBerry's a cybersecurity company, Brian. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they've rebranded themselves as a and good for them. Find new life with cybersecurity software.
Hmm.
Seems many of us have reinvented ourselves that way at some point. So
You do you.
yeah, so God bless. Well, yeah. So we're talking about much anticipated. We're talking about New Year's resolutions for cybersecurity today. Sounds like fun. We're gonna go. We're gonna start the year off right with a long intro. Here we go.
Okay, I like.
Okay. So, yeah, as we said, you're not clearly not quite sure where I'm going to go today. So sit back a little bit. Come sit by Uncle Brian next to
Let
the
me get
fire.
comfortable here.
Yeah, and we're going to have a little bit of story time in talking about New Year's resolutions. So, as you know, as people who've watched before might have some sense of, I've spent most of my career as a leader in IT operations, and then over the last decade, leading cybersecurity teams inside of corporate America. And you certainly have given me some grief for that, for representing all of corporate America, corporate
See
IT.
how I controlled my facial expressions when you said that?
No, you did that poorly.
Sorry.
And I will tell you that the New Year's resolutions have been a big part of the cadence of my work. So when I come to the end of the year, um, I think I think most people have some sort of reflection around, okay, new year, what, what, what resolution, new thing I'm going to try at least for the first week or two of the year. And a lot of people, professionally do similarly. And I would say it's been a big part of my cadence. And I even would tell you, most of my career, I schedule a week during that weird downtime week between Christmas and New Year's. I usually budget at least one day of work just to reflect, think
Hmm.
about my performance as a leader, think about the progress of my teams, what's working well, where do I need to get better. And separately, and most of the companies I've worked for, the calendar year and the fiscal year have lined up, and so hopefully at some point before that in the fourth quarter at a company, I may have worked on my budget for the year to come and put together my initial wish list of what are the new people that I want to hire and the products or services that I could buy. And usually that was a very large list, my wish list. And almost without exception, if I would got 5 or 10% of that approved, in the year to come, that'd be exceptional. But I think, this New Year's resolution topics, if I summarize my list was, how do I want to get better personally? How do I want my team to improve? And that would include processes and capabilities of the team or teams that I was responsible for. And then wish list, what people do I want to add and what products do I want to add? And this year was an interesting year because, it's been a couple of years. I'm a couple of years removed from corporate America now, but this was a year I budgeted some time to reflect kind of at large on my corporate experience. And I think my people, my tribe, focused too much on products and news and trends. And even when we thought we were being strategic, kind of the news of the day, or what was trendy, or what new product space had Gartner just named, or what are the articles being written, what does whatever magazine say, should be on our plans list for this year. Or maybe, what thing had bitten us in the past year. Like, oh, okay, it's not very strategic. It's actually pretty tactical. What do I need to go chase? And anyway, all this comes down to the end of story time. I with some reflection, I think back on my career, even if I'd like to imagine I was better than most, or better than average at least, at being strategic and focusing on root cause. I think there was too much focus on products and news and trends. And my recommendation for a New Year's resolution is, from what I've seen over the last 2 years, is I think we all got to get significantly better at what I would call the basics. And I wanted to talk to you. You and I know, talk about this a goodly amount, but I think your background in the carrier service provider world would probably be, pretty helpful, because as I've talked to you, it's been interesting. I think the organizations you worked in, unlike corporate IT, managed to avoid the flavor of the week products that, you've got to buy an EDR or an XDR this year, or that sort of thing. Was wondering, it'd be good to talk about the basics, but that's my resolution. I'm going to turn in, did you have any thoughts coming into this ill-defined?
I do. Yeah, I do. I have a resolution as well, but I want to dig into yours a little bit more. This is, now that we've listened to Uncle Brian, you get to listen to therapist Aaron. So I have some questions about your resolution.
Yeah.
Because obviously it comes from a place of doing something different. I've always struggled with the hype cycle around technology.
Yeah.
And obviously the people who create the hype stand to benefit from the hype.
Right.
That's not new to technology acquisitions in corporations. And a number of years ago, I was giving a talk to IT leaders, and I talked about IT becoming a little bit like your closet, your walk-in closet. And you're gonna hate this. Okay, you don't know where I'm going with this. but you'll hate me even more for it. And you know, like in your basement or in the closet, there's like the shake weight and the thigh master and the all the ads seen on TV. Your case of sham wows,
Yeah.
you know, all of those like pre-packaged diet meals that you were gonna go on, and like like we're gonna, oh well, that tool didn't work. It's the tool's fault. So we
Right.
should, if I get my buns of steel video, I'm gonna do that one, right? Or like whatever it
You know
is.
what I need? I need a juicer.
Yeah, yeah, right. Like, oh, have you seen? Yeah. So it's like there's like these simple challenges we have in life, and you know, as individuals, but corporately as well. They're simple, but they're hard.
Right.
And so we have this hard time like admitting to ourselves that, you know, maybe there isn't an easy solution to this
Right.
simple problem. Maybe they're all hard, and the ones that seem too easy are too good to be true.
Well, and I want to add another, I want to totally agree with you. I don't hate it. And I wanted to add kind of another wrinkle or dynamic to it of, you know, the shake weight and the sham wow aren't just sort of, it's not that they're terrible. And
No.
what they function, I think, for us is when I look at something that's hard, it becomes a representation of that's the working out for me. And we can view that in a really terrible way, or it's when I don't know where to start, when like I know this thing needs to be done, but because it's hard, I don't, you know, I could go just,
Yeah.
you know, work out of like, I could just go walk or run or do
Right.
jumping jacks or push-ups or,
And
but
and it's a bit like, you know, we go in and say, you know, I'm talking to someone about their security strategy, and they're like, well, look at all the products that we have. And I just imagine like me walking someone into my basement and being like, of course I exercise. There's my shake weight, there's my buns of steel, this is my Richard Simmons video over here. And they're
yeah,
like, your waistline disagrees, Aaron.
yeah,
um,
right.
right. And it's like we get into that, but we're almost like, yeah. So is that kind of what you like when you talk about
Yeah.
like back to the basics of some of these are just solid technology principles that we've
Yeah.
avoided for a long time? And
Well, and I think our culture and communication in corporate America ties in to this challenge because that budgeting process that I talked about in most of my career, I have, even though it's not has been as much as I want, when I want to go do an initiative, it's hard to get money, but it is
Mhm.
easier to get money for something tangible that I could
Mm.
spend capital money on, that I could point to, you know,
We have that thing
no,
now.
really. I
Hmm.
mean, of
That
it's
makes sense.
unhealthy, but it is very, very real that the CFO can say, wait, what am I buying for? You
Mhm.
know, what is the thing? What is, or the outcome that I'm buying for you? And those outcomes aren't, but they seem very binary.
Like it's easier to measure things than risk.
Correct. Of, well, I implemented the thing of, so, well, what are we going to do about ransomware? Well, you know, people are buying the anti-ransomware nator, which is, you know, MDR or
Sparkle Cloud, which now protects us from everything.
correct.
Yeah, got it.
And so that's, you know, here we're talking about stuff that's been the way it's been for years. I think where we got to get real is as I talk to non-IT leaders, I think that's getting old. I think it's capacity to pull in the non-IT leadership that buy
Mhm.
the stuff for us in IT and cybersecurity. I think they are increasingly realizing that
Like
the
more
money they
skeptical.
spend is just a
Mhm.
big tube that they're shoving,
just cramming money into,
just keep throwing money down this tube. And
and not aren't like maybe not seeing tangible results,
correct.
because we
And
seem
how's
like
that
we're
working? Do I really think that that's going to keep us from getting attacked with
because
ransomware?
we're a couple of 3 years into this big hockey stick in cybersecurity spending. So as executives, their gut feel on the like, hey, why isn't this getting any better? Must be like setting off some alarm bells in some people's head.
Yeah, I think they're getting increasingly suspicious.
Hmm.
And so that's, my drive of why back to the basics. One is just own personal realization.
Okay.
Secondly, I think to do otherwise, to keep buying more and more shake weights. I mean, I hear it in ShamWows. I hear it in the language and vocabulary of CFOs and CEOs and CTOs of like, wait a minute, why am I throwing more money at the, like, I'm not saying I won't as a CFO or as the person paying the bills. I'm not saying I won't give this to you, but this has always been the case. And if we think it's unfair in IT and cybersecurity, it's always been the case for other if you're in sales and hey, I need a bunch of money thrown at me, or you're in marketing, it has always come home to roost. That inevitably there's some point where you have to say, how's that working out for us? What are you doing? I'm giving you money. What are you giving me in return? And how's that investment playing out? The kind of the last reason I want to hit on of why back to the basics is I've seen increasingly over the last year in particular, the bad guys and gals that we're fighting against, the cyber criminals that are committing ransomware, they're out there sort of taunting us. And I've seen increasingly, Russian language articles where they just laugh about EDR, or, that if you go and read some of those interviews they're pretty unreserved, and they're in being unimpressed with just the basic things that are going on in the organization, which is to say they are not having to work very hard because
it's not hard.
Amazing things that are down.
No, these are not. Yeah.
It's just, it's the
well,
most basic.
That kind of goes. Am I cutting you off here if I share mine, or do you have more to?
No,
that's kind of a prelude into my New Year's resolution, and mine is don't be like that. That's my New Year's resolution, and I'll explain it.
I'm sorry, don't be what?
Don't be like that.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And here's something that it's really. Sometimes I fall into it myself, and then later I'm like, oh, I did it again. And do you ever have things like that where you're like, I don't want to be like that, and then you do these things, and you're like, I
did it again.
I did it again. And I think by and large, I'm skeptical about new products. Anyways, I'm always like, that just looks like an old thing repackaged like a new thing. So I think I'm pretty okay-ish on that front. I already have my zero trust security for new products. It's a dad joke. But the hype of security news is what seems to be like a balance issue. We just had Log4j, and the amount of like focus and effort that got for like teams, app developers, IT teams, security teams, executives, the amount of people that I know that are my peer, CISOs that got pulled into boardrooms to talk about.
Not to mention vendors, happy to play along, certainly, with all of
that.
Yeah.
And so when I say don't be like that, I think of it as ambulance chasing. Of like, hey, let's go chase this one thing down. It's an emergency. And I get that there's a tendency to do that, but I think there's a lot of negative impacts to it. that we as cyber professionals need to bring a level of like calmness and stability to the situation, because when we as professionals and leaders in security buy into the ambulance chasing, we give false sense of security to our boards and executive teams. We burn out and stress out the already understaffed teams that we have, because like I don't want to diminish Log4j. From a vulnerability, it's, you know, a 10 out of 10. Obviously, your open VPN tunnels into your environment are a 100 out of 10. And we're not starting a fire over those things. And we find them all the freaking time, right? And so I think it's to be balanced about it. And some of the conversations I was having yesterday is, you know, really thinking about when we have this crisis moment, how do we use that crisis moment to get people to focus on a long-term vision, not just plugging one finger into the
Yeah.
dam for that particular problem. And as much as I try to sit back, all of a sudden, like when there's this crisis moment, I feel like first responder Aaron
Yeah.
like kicks up, and like that part of, you know, our brain that's like, hey, this is an opportunity to lay out a long-term strategy versus this is an
Yeah.
opportunity to manage a crisis, like is in this, has this balance. So
Well, and
hopefully
it's
that
the
makes some sense. But
I'm with you. That's the strategic focus of, you know, versus the firefighter focus. And many of us, you and I've talked about this too. Early in my career, I came up as a firefighter, so I go very easily. It's not that I enjoy it or like it, but I am familiar with the sensation of it. So it's like,
yeah,
okay,
you're,
put on the red suspenders, go fight log for, you know, yet
all of us
again.
have a little first responder in us. How much it varies on the person, but that first responder just really wants to come out in those situations.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, we, by not being strategic, everything becomes a death by a thousand cuts. And
Hmm.
so there's a view of, I go back, forget about Log4j for a second. I go back to SolarWinds, you know, kind of
Yeah.
maybe the one big one before it. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, software supply chain. And now there's a whole, like, here's another, you know, whole category I gotta, I guess, go add. There's a
But
whole set of new.
did we go add all that stuff, or were we just
No,
like, "Whew, solar winds isn't important anymore, let's focus on this other
no,
thing,"
I
or did we
know,
actually solve for it?
but I'm saying there was at least this moment, I would tell you, inside of many corporate organizations. Well, you know, tell me what our strategy is going to be on this. And even, you know, there were some people that came up with strategies. There were other people that went and looked at, well, what products can I buy? What services do
That
I need?
aren't
What new
solar winds.
processes do I need? Specifically around software supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
And my back to the basics comment is I don't think we're spending enough time, and partly because it's not how we're focused, it's not how we're incentivized, it's not even how we're funded a lot of times. But there's a view, there's a basics focus of things like Log4j and SolarWinds where you could say, you know, if I had better network segmentation, it wouldn't keep the vulnerability from being a 10 out of 10, but it would make me care significantly less
Yeah.
about,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if my network wasn't a big wide open network, this wouldn't be as huge of a deal. The other thing I thought about as we and people we work with were doing a ton of looking for and scanning, you know, we treated Log4j, I think many of us, as a vulnerability scanning activity, when in fact,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
well,
It's not how it works.
and there are scanners for, you know, and existing scanners updated, new scanners came out, and again, people were treating it as a scanning activity. But
Mm-hmm.
I did have these moments where I thought this just highlights our unwillingness to be good at software inventory.
Oh, I love you. Oh, I love software inventory so much. Thank you for
You know what I
saying that.
mean? Like if if we were truly good at the basics, the where am
Mm-hmm.
I using Log4j would be a, a database query, man.
Mhm.
Or if I had basics of instrumentation on workstations and servers, it would
Mhm.
be, again, it would be a query. If I was Facebook, it'd be an OS query
Oh yeah.
that I would
Which
run.
machines are running this package and where?
This,
Mhm.
do I have this problem? I would know the answer to that enterprise wide in,
Well,
under an hour.
empirically. So just to pull on that thread just a little bit more, and we have just a couple minutes here.
Yeah.
Even when we test for Log4j, because I did quite a bit of scanning and
Yeah.
actual enumeration of the vulnerabilities, there's a negative result on a Log4j test is not an indicator that you're not vulnerable,
Right.
right? There's so many different variables to, like, did your WAF block the inbound traffic? Is the package just not loaded at the time? Did you block my call home DNS? Like, there's so many different pieces to
Yeah.
it, and it takes a long time, and it's really hard on your network. Like, when we're just out, like, just banging on stuff,
It's
first,
it's like that. It's like that children's book. Do you remember? Are you my mother? Are you my mother? Are you
is
my?
this a personality? Like, I'm sure we have memes about this, but yeah, it's like that. And yeah, like, outside of just banging on your devices, which I don't think is a great way to just, oh, does that lock work? I don't know. Try to kick the door in. Um, the It creates so much noise inside of the security telemetry that we have, makes it even harder to sort out bad stuff that's happening. And doing software inventory is so easy, when we know how to do it, in an automated fashion. And that's where we are able to give you, like, empirical data that says, here's where it is, here's where it isn't. Go focus your limited resources on these areas. So I think that's a great point,
Yeah.
about an example of basics.
Well, and I'm going to come back. Maybe my final point for today on this topic is basics. I even hesitated to use that word because, like, I even had a phrase "back to basics," and I chose not to say "back to basics" because in many of our organizations we were never there. It's like, look, I can't go back to it if I never,
Yeah.
I never had a hardware and software inventory. And
I'm not convinced that everybody knows what the basics are, though,
no,
Brian.
I'm correct. And my proposal is, I think, like, next week let's get together again next week, and I'll bring my list,
Yeah,
and why don't you bring your list, and
got
let's
it.
compare. I'd love to see, your basics versus my
Obviously, my
basics.
list will be better.
Oh,
So,
that goes without saying. Yeah.
not really. It'll be
Um,
different for sure.
yeah. But and and that's part of the challenge too. In saying basics, there's almost this, we don't want to admit to the people who do fund us sometimes that we aren't doing these basic underlying things.
Yeah.
But you know,
Like, use complex passwords.
yeah.
And people are like, we already do, Shaver. We have a very complex password in our basement. And if you don't believe me, we'll go get it out and show you. It's this long, Brian. It's a beautiful complex password. We all share it. It's the same one.
Well, sir, good to talk to you again. We had a little
You
break
too.
there, but I'm looking
Happy New
forward
Year.
to this year in a
Yeah,
lot of ways. I think it's going to be a great year,
it'll
and
be.
for constructive security as well. So good to talk to you as always, and I'll see you next week, if not
Yep.
sooner.
All right. Talk to you later.
Later.